Good afternoon. Welcome to Sports Nothing But Sports with Kent Sterling for Thursday, November 21st, 2019. Brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry. I'm telling you, you want to give yourself a nice Christmas present, all you have to do is call 317-849-2933. That's the number to Today's Dentistry. Give yourself the gift of better dental health, better cardiac health, better overall health. Going to a dentist is a great thing to do, a great investment of your time. Every 6 months, Dr. Mike O'Neill, absolutely the best who's done it, at least for me, for the last 25 years. Let's talk about the Colts. Colts, a big game tonight against the Houston Texans in Houston. It's Thursday Night Football. Those games usually suck. Not tonight. This game will go a long way toward determining exactly who's going to win the AFC South. If the Colts win this game, it'll be their second win against the Texans. They will go to 7-4. The Texans will drop to 6-5. And the Texans play the New England Patriots next weekend at Houston. So, if the Colts can salt this game away, all right, the Titans and the Jaguars play each other this weekend. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. The Colts, with a win, put themselves in an excellent position to win the AFC South. They've got a game next weekend at Lucas Oil Stadium against the Titans. If the Titans win this weekend against the Jaguars, and the Colts beat the Texans tonight, and the Patriots beat the Texans next weekend, holy cow, if the Colts win tonight and then that game next weekend at Lucas Oil Stadium against the Titans, they've won the AFC South. They won't have put it away mathematically, but it'll be almost impossible for anybody to catch them. They'll clinch at least a 5-1 record in the division. So how do they go about doing that? Well, fortunately for the Colts tonight, a good bit of the defensive secondary of Houston is not going to be able to play. So they're going to have backups at safety. They're going to have maybe a backup at cornerback. They're going to have the same defensive front. But if T.Y. Hilton can play for the Colts, the Texans are in no position to defend great speed on the outside for the Indianapolis Colts. So if the Colts get Hilton, and you've got the tight ends who are great athletes with good speed, you got a chance to really raise some hell offensively. Defensively, the Colts, they're in pretty good shape. Khari Willis down tonight. He'll be replaced by Clayton Geathers in large part, but those guys have rotated throughout the season anyway. Pierre Desir is going to play. So between Desir, Kenny Moore II, and then Marvell Tell, you've got a good crew at cornerback. Safeties, free safety, you've got Malik Hooker, and then that defensive front is as good as it gets, those 7 guys, and they're all relatively healthy. This sets up for a nice matchup for the Colts against the Texans, and a good chance for the Colts not just to cover that plus 3.5, but to win outright, and by doing so, put themselves, like I said, in a great position to win the AFC South. Indiana last night, let's go back to that. So the Indiana Hoosiers win by a gob over Princeton because they played well in the second half, and one of the reasons they played well in the second half is that Devonte Green is really establishing himself as an adult presence on the floor for the Hoosiers. And I wasn't ever sure I was going to be able to say that. Devonte Green, through his first 2 years in Indiana, was an utter disappointment, looked like one of those guys created by the AAU culture, for lack of a better way to put it. One of these guys who was just waiting his turn to play in the NBA and make millions of dollars. Well, because he played a selfish brand of basketball and he's not quite athletic enough or good enough to be one of those guys who is an obvious, hey, you're going to the NBA guy, he needed to stay in school and he needed to mature, and mature, it looks like he has. Last night, he scored 16 points in 26 minutes, and it wasn't the typical chuck-em Devonte Green. It was a guy who found his shots within the flow of the offense, minus 1 3 that he made, which was late in the shot clock, but he had to force that up. And then as far as creating for others, did a really nice job of that. For the second game in a row, he had 4 assists, could have been 6 assists if a couple of bunnies had been made. And then those were countered by only 1 turnover in each of the last 2 games. I know it's early to make this kind of judgment. Devonte Green has only been on the floor for 46 minutes this season for the Hoosiers. But boy, so far does he look like a guy who's really going to pony up on the good end for the Hoosiers and not show so much the bad Devonte. We've had good Devonte, bad Devonte. A lot of people talk about that, right? I've talked about it for 3 years. But right now what it looks like is you get a whole bunch of good and not so much bad at all. I love the maturity that Devonte Green is bringing to this team. Earlier, maybe a month ago, they decided who the captains were going to be for the Indiana basketball team. And one of them was Devonte Green. I was like, what are you doing? You're trying to hope it into existence. You're trying to create a leader by bestowing a captaincy on this kid's jersey. I was talking to Archie Miller, of course. That, not the case at all. This guy looks like he's ready to lead this team, at least in his actions, if not with his words. And that's fine by me. Devonte Green has looked terrific. Looks like a leader. Looks like the kind of guy who, as a senior, is really going to lift the Indiana team. So here's the deal with college, all right? College is a place where people mature. You go to college, you think the world orbits you. Right? You're the sun, and everybody in your life, they're the planets, and you have no idea what discipline is in large part, and you've really got to take your mess of a life, have it kind of coagulate, and by the time you graduate, you're a functional human being who can go into the adult world and function a little bit, right? So, Devonte Green is a great example of just that. And one of the things that I've been critical about with Archie Miller is that Indiana players have not really developed under Archie Miller in a way that I've liked. I haven't seen anybody get a whole lot better because they played for Archie Miller. Now, granted, he's been there for 2 full seasons. This is his 3rd. So we don't know really whether he can take a freshman and have the kid leave as a senior as an entirely different kid, an entirely different player. But you look at Devonte Green and the maturity that he has shown and the evolution of character that he's shown, and you say, wow, this dude has developed under Archie Miller, and now Archie Miller and the Hoosiers are ready to kind of exploit him for some wins on the basketball court instead of just trying to coach him up. I love what Devonte Green has become. I love the effect that Archie Miller's had on him, and I love the way that he is putting himself in a position to lead this team and lead this roster toward improved play and perhaps an NCAA tournament berth. All right, let's talk about the Indiana Pacers with our good friend Scott Agness from The Athletic. Vic, when's Vic going to be there? When's Vic going to be on the floor? What do we know about Vic? Where have we seen him? When's he come back?
Yeah, so he continues to make strides every day. At this point, he has still been limited to every other day. Primarily, it's half-court work of everything he's doing. But it is contact. He's defending. He's taking charges. He's diving into people. He's going, against contact, essentially. But he has a doctor's appointment coming up, and that's where the timeline will then start approaching a little bit more, and we'll get some clarity, because this is a rehab that's been driven by him and his people. The Pacers are not ahead of his rehab, so to speak, and so it is all dictated by his doctor.
Don't the Pacers have good doctors? That's kind of annoying.
So generally in these type of situations, this is where a player's agent will jump in and want a second opinion, which I absolutely agree with. I would always want that because you understand there is some bias coming from these doctors, whether it's an urgency to get a player back or maybe it's not a specialty of theirs, whatever the injury is.
And if they screw it up, he's in that swing period prior to his max deal, or what we would suspect would be a max deal. So you're talking about $150 million hanging in the balance if this thing goes squirrely.
Yeah, so it's significant. So he not only went to his doctor, but that's been leading the charge. And Victor, in fact, has his own physical therapist here that he rehabs with, in addition.
Good Lord.
People could only see your face. In addition to the team trainer. So, one, it's part of his regimen. He's very routine in everything he does, and so I think that's part of it. But it's also just a comfort factor. But we don't know anything additional at this point. There is still no timeline, and I think that's best for the franchise for right now, is not to set a timeline on it.
I want him back by the Clippers game. That's all I want. We got to beat the hell out of the Clippers. I think we need Vic to do it.
It's early December.
Yeah.
Let's
go.
No.
Let's go. Get on the floor.
They played the Lakers like 3 games later,
Man
so that would be a fun back-to-back, Eric, with those two.
So what about Brogdon? Brogdon going to play Saturday. He's got a week back. He got it about a week back, and now it's we enjoy ourselves.
That's a toss-up at this point. We still don't know where he's at. T.J. McConnell's groin. I know he's made. We haven't been together as often as we used to be.
Oh, you're in the injury. Okay.
Yeah. So that was something that came upon him on the plane. The team playing from Houston. He doesn't know when it had happened in the Houston game, but it did, and that bothered him. I would suspect those injuries, those little ones, will begin to allow these guys to come back and slowly but surely allow Nate to start doing what he'd like to do. Because right now, there's no book he's operating off of. There's no plan or anything because
didn't
this
hurt
is
him
all
against the Nets. I know Kyrie wasn't out there, but damn, they beat the living hell out of the Nets.
Pacers have always had their number. And I don't know what it is. And every single time we go to Brooklyn, Kenny Atkinson always hypes the Pacers about their defense, about their physicality, and about Nate McMillan. Every single time.
You're different. You would recognize him. But if Kenny Atkinson walked into this room, I'd be like, are they selling the building? There's a corporate real estate guy. I would have no idea it was Kenny Atkinson.
He's a really brilliant mind. Yeah.
There are so many people in the NBA, so many coaches where it's like, okay, who's this guy? Mm-hmm. Like Nick Nurse before last year's playoffs. I wouldn't recognize Nick Nurse.
Look for the hat with the NN. Seriously, he does that.
But you got guys who are like, who's the coach of the Magic? They're coming in on Saturday.
Steve Clifford.
Okay, I'd recognize him. Although he's gotten rid of the glasses. He used to wear those kind of Coke bottle bottom glasses where I thought, well, I'm afraid he's got some kind of macular degeneration. There's something wrong with Steve's vision.
Has it hit you that Frank is the coach of the Lakers, or is that still weird to you?
I'm not sure it's hit Frank, but something is going to hit Frank.
He's doing a great job.
He is so far, but if the thing gets a little bit wobbly, Frank's going to be in trouble. Thankfully, Frank has a big contract, and he's going to land quite happily whatever happens with him. But I feel like he's like a 5-game losing streak if that happens with this team, a 5-game losing streak from being on the street.
Well, right now they have the best record in the league. And I thought they'd be good. But not this good. Not
I'm
this early.
happy for him.
Either.
He's a great dude. I love Frank. Mm-hmm. But they didn't hire him because they felt like he was the best coach.
No, he was clearly their third, fourth option down the row. The one I was surprised at is after they didn't get Ty Lue and those sorts of things, and they really didn't even reach out or make contact with Monty Williams, who is doing an excellent job so far. Is he a guy you'd recognize in Phoenix?
I would recognize Monty Williams, yes. So, all right, this team... Aaron Holiday, I want to talk about two guys, Aaron Holiday and Myles Turner, because both of these guys fans are very, very polar about those guys. Some hate Myles Turner, some love him, think he ought to be the Defensive Player of the Year. With Aaron Holiday, he chucks it too much. And then other guys, you know what? He had, 24 and 13 the other night against the Nets.
Best game easily as a Pacer.
What the hell? You know, what are we bitching about with Aaron Holiday? Because I'm one of those people, I don't like guys taking shots outside the offense. He does it. Myles Turner is a guy where things just kind of haven't gelled with the Pacers yet.
So the first thing that stands out about those two is both draft picks. So that raises generally your expectations for what you expect, and it always has you second guessing, right, about the other guy or the guy that's having success elsewhere that you passed on. I know a lot of people around here often bring up OG Anunoby, when I think that was TJ Leaf's year. Now,
he's like the Draymond Green guy. Mm-hmm. You know, we didn't take Draymond Green. Well, I do that.
That one we all said. That's the one exception, at least in my mind, because we were all sitting there. It's like, I think it was pick 23, maybe 26.
For who?
For
OG or Leaf?
Instead of Draymond.
Oh, yeah,
way back in the day.
Plumlee at 26.
Your mid-20s, that's a toss-up. I would go with a winner over a guy that doesn't have much potential. He's a known quantity at this point. Back to first with Myles, I think there's also that internal struggle between I have to pick one. Is it Domas or is it Myles? I think fans go through that struggle a little bit. And with Domas, you have more consistency. You have more numbers. So if you're just strictly looking at the box score, he's going to jump out to you more, right? Because it's generally a double-double every single game. And Myles doesn't play physical. They'd like to see that. And it's hard, I think, to value rim protection sometimes or speak about it a little bit, about how much of an impact you can have. And that's clearly Myles' biggest impact place. And then for Aaron, I think the thing with him, and I think so far the questions are all earned to this point. Especially to me, I don't have a problem with his shot making as much as his decision making I feel like a lot of it's him overthinking or trying to do too much.
Yeah, I think he's trying to prove himself.
Yeah, and it felt like in the Brooklyn game, there was that like the first 2-3 minutes. Then he just settled back, and I don't know if it was Justin. I don't know if it's no expectations for this group at all. But that's the Aaron that we all expected to be thrusted and really capitalize on being the backup point guard, which he's really not anymore. He's more so, if anything, that's shooting guard with that second unit. And I could see that with T.J. McConnell, how they use him once everybody gets back.
Well, the tough part for him is there's no path to being a starter on this team.
No.
Like, he's completely boogered. He's stacked behind Brogdon and behind Oladipo. And if he's going to play point as a starter in this league, he's going to do it for another team.
Yeah, and my thing is, though, right now, I mean, he can't even be focused on that because he's not playing at a starter level.
Right.
His end game needs to be a consistent contributor off the bench and be the vocal and lead the guy that's leading the charge, I think, for that second unit, because that's something that was missing. But really, I'll give a lot of credit to T.J. McConnell, who stepped in and done an outstanding job, way more than I think anybody expected off the court.
T.J. Leaf you brought up, and so they took Leaf instead of Anunoby, and people are still upset about that. Is there going to be a point at which T.J. Leaf becomes a reasonable option to do anything important for this team?
Wish I knew. The serious answer is I don't know.
Rotationally, defensively, he's terrible.
He struggled in a lot of things. I mean, coming in, the initial reaction was he's a bigger guy that can knock down threes. He can play in the post and knock down threes. Well, his shot has gone haywire. He's lost all confidence in that. Wants to play in the post, and he's actually a pretty good guy in the post when he can take advantage of mismatches. Defensively, he's a little light and kind of gets pushed over a little bit. So I think that's to be determined with him.
Here's an interesting question about Myles and Domas. I think that if Myles is down, Domas becomes an all-star. If Domas is down, I don't think Myles becomes an all-star. Do you know what I mean? Like, Domas is going to be a 24-13 type guy. I don't think Myles has that in him. Does that make sense?
It does, and it speaks to kind of what I was saying earlier, is Myles doesn't put up necessarily those big numbers. He impacts the game in other ways.
And he's a good stretch guy.
It depends. Yeah, he's a guy that you can run the pick and roll and fade back to the top of the arc and knock down that three. He loves shooting that shot, whereas Domas hesitates a lot with that. I think being an all-star could still be in the cards for Myles. Still very young. Both are still 23.
Right. We completely overlook that.
You're right. If you're going on one of these sports books and guessing on one of them, that would be a reasonable tab to pick up Domas instead of Myles.
Boy, and this, I think, worked in his favor, didn't it? With Myles being down for a while, Domas just went to work.
Yeah, he just puts it in gear and goes. Like, he hates missing games. I was surprised he played this last game because he was hurt. But he plays through it. He's one of those like Boyan was last couple of years. Tries to play through anything, and he's just a gamer. Just loves playing.
And it's way too early, and I see this on Twitter too, but I agree with it. Myles has only played with this group for 6 games. So it's way early to make any kind of judgment. Goga, when Goga's on the floor as a member of that kind of a starting unit, when he's on the floor with Sabonis, it kind of works. And when Myles is, it's clunky. And so people are starting to look at Goga and saying, hey, look at this guy. And that doesn't work for Myles. Plus, Goga's kind of cool. Goga's like, this
he's this
wacky personality.
Yeah.
But he's got a great personality. You can read it on his face. Tremendous competitor. Myles is a little more enigmatic. And because of that, there's like this fan thing.
He's a little bit more to himself, yeah.
Yeah,
he's a big.
Right.
So he started to get into Fleetwood Mac. That was one of the conversations we were having in the locker room recently. Yeah, he's gotten into Fleetwood Mac, and when he was with Team USA over in, I think, Sydney, he got on stage at the concert and was really digging it and wore a T-shirt of that to.
Honest to God,
you're stunned. Yeah.
Well, I just don't understand. Like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. I don't know whether that weighs in his favor or disfavor.
Myles is just a unique character that's really an introvert that can have fun at sometimes, right? Like, he's very private, loves music though.
Although he dresses like a Batman superhero. He's got the eyeglasses. He looks like the Riddler.
Yeah, he's a big cartoon, Star Wars, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, I saw him tweeting about that. He wanted recommendations from people who had played the new Star Wars game on Xbox or PS4. Like, drop the $60, take it for a spin, and figure it out. What's the matter with you? You make $18 million a year.
Here's a great example of that as well. I'd gotten the new iPhone. And, hey, Scott, how's the new iPhone? Let me know. I was explaining it to him, but I was like, you realize it's like $1,000. It's not that big a deal. He goes, you know what, man? It doesn't matter. It's still my money, and no matter how much I have, I still want to be careful with it. I was like, well, you're smart. That's a good thing to say, but you also can be
good for him. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. And I'm glad you two are having that conversation. You're coaching somebody to spend more money. This is how cheap that guy is.
What a world.
All right, brother. Saturday night against the Magic. They haven't been bad, have they? They've been okay.
No,
they're kind of inside the playoff threshold.
Yeah, they're a little disappointing, I would say, to this point. The big thing we'll be watching is the fact that last night, two of their best players just got hurt. Aaron Gordon rolled his ankle, and Nikola Vucevic as well went down. He was an all-star for the first time last year. So, I mean, maybe the Pacers will get a breather and a break towards them for once, and it'll be a little lighter load Saturday.
And especially important to you on Saturday is that you're going to have a great excuse to leave Bloomington early and Memorial Stadium early when it's 35 degrees and sleeting out.
Go.
You're not going to go at all?
Can't get 3:30 game. I get to the arena at 4:30.
Okay. What do you do from 4:30 to 7? I know you're not eating because you got to pay for the food here.
You got me nailed to a T, but so I can't go to that. I am keeping my eye on a bowl game. I'm hoping for the Outback Bowl.
Tampa, that'd be nice.
That would work nicely for me. I could get down there for a day and back.
Nashville's not too bad, Music City Bowl.
But I don't know when that date is.
I don't know either. But the CEO, I know, is going to be at Memorial Stadium for this game on Saturday, so we'll see. Thanks for stopping by.
Always good to be with you.
The great Scott Agness from The Athletic. Pacers, like we mentioned, taking on the Orlando Magic Saturday night at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. Come out and watch his team. If you haven't seen the Pacers play, you owe it to yourself to do that, because this is a team that plays selfless basketball, exactly the kind of basketball that Indiana fans really enjoy. Come on out, watch them play. They're getting healthier, and as they get healthier, they're going to get better. The schedule kind of weak over the next 2.5, 3 weeks, so they've got a chance, an opportunity to bulk up on some wins and put themselves in a position where instead of being discussed in that second tier in the Eastern Conference, like from 3rd to 7th or 8th, all of a sudden, maybe they wind up in 3rd, and we're talking about them as a possible contender along with the Bucks and the Celtics as a team that can come out of the East and play in the NBA Finals. I think that they're that good. I think healthy, this team sets up as a very, very competitive team in the Eastern Conference. You know what else is very competitive? It's Breakfast with Kent every weekday morning at 8 o'clock on Facebook Live, and then at about 8:15 on Periscope Live. It's a show so nice, we do it twice. I hope you make the choice to join so many others who have suddenly found Breakfast with Kent to be a great way to start the day. Join me tomorrow morning, brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry. Call them at 317-849-2933.